sex, sheep, and the most emotionally undermining game over screen of all time. It's all things you'll find in Catherine, the quirky Japanese story-driven puzzle game from Atlus Studios, the guys that brought you the Persona series. While it's certainly not the earth-shaking psychological thriller that I thought it would be originally, it's definitely a fun and interesting game that you should definitely check out if it interests you and if you have the time. The story's lead is Vincent Brooks, a 32-year-old programmer who finds himself cursed one night. Over 7 nights, his dreams place him on a crumbling tower that he needs to ascend to survive. Word gets out that unfaithful men have been having a similar dream, and rumor spreads that dying in the dream will end you in real life. Vincent has supposedly been sent here by his long-term girlfriend, Catherine. She's conservative and empowered to the point of somewhat overbearing, but also undeniably loving. She wants to settle down and start a family, while Vincent would rather stay inside his comfort zone. That is, until he wakes up next to another woman, also named Catherine, who's wild and free-spirited. Vincent has to figure out how to solve his girl problems while surviving the dream world, night after night. If there's one part of Catherine that has received lots of attention, it's the story. The main cast of characters are all a colorful bunch, and those that engage themselves in the story will want to talk to everyone. Strong voice acting and a well-localized script rounds out the story package. If you were expecting a culture shock that you would find in most Japanese games, you can rest easy. While the story has a somewhat heavy subject matter, it has a bizarre tone to it and is peppered with some lightheartedness, so the story never becomes too overbearing or heavy, and stays entertaining from beginning to end. If there are any problems, it's that Vincent's hesitant and lying nature gets into most of the trouble the story throws at him. So while he's a sympathetic character, he's also kind of an idiot, as he keeps digging himself a deeper hole. It's true that the game's themes of growing up and maturity depend on a character like Vincent, but the fact that so many vital decisions are made with no possible influence from the player can make the game kind of frustrating to watch. Additionally, the themes of the story don't hit all the notes that they could, so the philosophy and mystery that Catherine presents doesn't have the impact that something like Doubt managed to deliver. Catherine's design can be split up into 2 parts. The first is the nightmare sections, which take up the majority of the game. In these levels, Vincent must move the block foundations of the tower to make a path for him to climb with. There are various rules and block types that need to be acknowledged to succeed. At its heart, this is a puzzle game, but it doesn't feel like one when you start playing. The game is all about the various building methods you can use to your advantage, and most sections of a stage have multiple possible solutions. Throw in enemies, the occasional boss, items, and various block types, and you have a very binary game that doesn't feel at all like one. The crumbling tower also makes this a very frantic and fast-paced, but expect to die a lot, from falling, spikes, and even ass-to-mouth. After each stage, the player must answer a question about relationships, and their answers affect the ending. They aren't nearly as deep or philosophical as I would like them to be, but this is a great tool to engage the player in the themes of the story. As an interesting touch, the game shows you how similar your views are to the world through an online poll. If there's anything wrong with these dream sections, it's the controls. While they're fast and responsive, it almost feels too fast at times. However, if you find yourself hanging from a ledge on the opposite side of the tower, reversed controls and a useless rotation camera will likely be the end of you. In fact, the camera can be problematic, as it sometimes zooms out too far to make the different block types visually distinct. However, this is a rare issue, and overall, these dream stages are a pleasure to play. The second half of Catherine takes place in the real world at a bar called the Stray Sheep. Here, Vincent can talk to friends and visitors, play an arcade game called Rapunzel, and answer text messages. Rapunzel is an interesting diversion because it follows the same rules as the dream stages, but has a more set-in-stone number of solutions, and an unlimited time limit, making for a more challenging and tactical experience. The social elements in texting, however, are a bit less compelling. While the characters are all interesting and quirky, and some people will want to talk to them out of curiosity, talking to them doesn't carry quite as much emotional weight as a game like Mass Effect, and your involvement with them is almost completely separate from the core gameplay. Thankfully, if you don't care to talk, you can skip the bar scenes and jump to the next nightmare stage. It's just a shame that such a story-heavy section in a story-driven game doesn't carry more weight to the core gameplay, making it somewhat of an add-on as opposed to a fundamental foundation of the game. And I guess if you really want to, you can get shit-faced at the bar while you're at it. The presentation of Catherine is a mixed bag. Tech-wise, it does nothing notable, and some textures don't look anywhere as sharp as they could. But the main character models look pretty nice, and most of them do a good job at recreating the look of the animated cutscenes throughout the game. These animated segments look nice, but they switch over to in-engine cutscenes at some abnormal points in time. Obviously, this is a game that is more about art style, but I honestly don't feel like Catherine is particularly strong in this department either. The bizarre gothic horror look fits the bill, but the art style doesn't have the wow factor that most artsy games like Muramasa and Limbo carry. The soundtrack is an interesting selection of remixed classical pieces, but this ends up working extremely well and is the strongest point of the presentation, as well as the great voice acting and well-localized script. Overall, it's a nice looking and sounding package, but visually, this won't blow you away as much as you would hope. Besides control issues, there isn't anything that Catherine does wrong, but it also lacks the flair to push it into must-play territory. As it stands, it's a unique game that relies on its individuality to stand out, but a lack of truly wide thematic scope keeps it from reaching its true potential. It's obviously not a game for everyone, but those who are interested should definitely invest the time, and its simple gameplay and story focus makes it a great way to get non-gamers into the medium. Overall, Catherine was a fun experience, and if you're interested, I definitely recommend you check it out. At least give it a rental, or you can look for it when it's on sale. As a full price, it feels a little bit steep, but still, it's definitely worth checking out if you have the time.
Is it gone? I'm safe, right? Yeah!